Hello and welcome to our third episode of The Gracious Patriot. We hope you enjoy our channel, that you will subscribe and enjoy it every time we have a new episode. In our third episode, we'd like to talk for a few minutes about the father of our country. It's hard to imagine anyone more important in the founding of the United States of America than George Washington. He was a great man, but he was just a man. Historian James Thomas Flexner, in his book, Washington, the Indispensable Man, speaks of trying to separate myth from fact and legend from actual history. Furthermore, Flexner had the desire not to obscure the greatness of the man from the current historic revisionists. He makes this insightful comment in the beginning of his book. Beginning thus, as it were new, I found a fallible human being made of flesh and blood and spirit, not a statue of marble and wood. And inevitably, I found a great man, a great and good man. In all history, few men who possess unassailable power have used that power so gently and self-effacingly, for what was their best instincts told them was the welfare of their neighbors and all mankind. And while indeed our first president had many faults, there is no doubt that God used him providentially in the founding of this great nation. Washington himself said, "It is a duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly implore His protection and favor." At Washington's funeral, Major General Harry Lighthorse Harry Lee was commissioned by the 6th Congress to write a eulogy about George Washington. Lee served under Washington in the Continental Army as a Major General. He also was a member of the Continental Congress and the late Governor of Virginia. As a close personal friend of Washington, Lee wrote a most touching eulogy. It was in that eulogy where Washington was first called first in war, first in peace, and first in the hearts of his countrymen. This is the part of Lee's eulogy which will be the springboard of this brief study of Washington's life. George Washington was to his fellow countrymen first in war. The awful Revolutionary War helped forge a mighty nation, but it was a terrible struggle. One of the darkest times was the awful winter at Valley Forge. Winter was approaching in 1777. The fortunes of the American Army were so bad, it led Thomas Paine to write his now famous words, "These are the times that try men's souls." The British Army was advancing on Philadelphia, the nation's first capital. George Washington believed that if it fell to the British, it would be nearly impossible to win independence. In an effort to save Philadelphia from capture, Washington and his weary troops would attack at Brandywine, a river in Pennsylvania. The British Army was simply too strong, commanded by General Howe. Washington's army was quickly surrounded, and the only thing that spared them was a decisive and clever retreat. Well, Philadelphia was now vulnerable, and it was captured and occupied by the British. Even though it was but 13 miles to Valley Forge, it took the Americans a week to get there. The ragged army was in such desperate condition, Washington said, "You might have tracked the army to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet." How could they survive the awful winter of 1777? This horrendous time would see 2,500 of the 11,000 soldiers die. How would they persevere and even win the war? Please tune in next time to our next episode of The Gracious Patriot, and we'll find out. We hope to see you then. God bless you.